Ď Doris and Seme for today's nice puja. This week, Brother Seng Huat is back with us to share on happiness is having real friends. So let's hear who is Brother Seng Huat's real friends. Over to you, Brother Seng Huat.
Thank you, Brother Terence, and thank you, the chanting group, Sister Doris and Sister May, for the wonderful chanting this morning. Let me just share my screen. Okay, before I do my morning sharing, let me just pay homage to the Buddha first. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, brothers and sisters in Dhamma. My topic this morning is happiness is having real friends. Here, there are two parts to the topic that I'm going to share this morning. The first part is happiness. Basically, we all want happiness in our life. So this morning, I am going to share with you one sutta, all right, in which the Buddha actually taught Dikajanu how to live happily. And in that same sutta, he also taught about the importance of having a real friends. So of course, we all don't live alone. We are social, so-called human beings. We interact with lots of people. Whether in good times or in bad times, we actually need relative, friends, loved ones, including Kalyana Mitras. That's why if you, last week, there was a talk given by Ayasma Arya Dhammika during our home warming, ceremony. He also talked about the importance of Kalyana Mitras and community in the Dhamma practice. So without further ado, let me just go straight to Dikajanu Sutta. Let's see. It's only one sutta that I'm going to share, but there could also be related other suttas that is relevant to this particular topic. Now, I think we all know that this morning when we chanted ETP, so one of the qualities of the Buddha is basically he is the teachers and leaders of gods and men. He does not only teach spiritual things, but he also teach laymen how to live a layman's life, right? So in the Gajanu Sutta, which is found in Anguttara Nikaya 8.54, the background to this sutta is that Dikajanu, the Korean, asked the Buddha, say, may the Buddha teach us the Dhamma in a way that leads us to our welfare and happiness in this life and future life. Dikajanu lives a normal life, just like you and me. He has got family, he's got friends, and he mentioned to the Buddha that they live a layman's life. They've got children, they indulge in fragrance, they indulge in luxury items like good clothing, good homes. They indulge in all the luxuries in life. At the same time, Dikajanu also wanted to know from the Buddha, how can us as laymen live our life through the Dhamma? And the Buddha expounded the following four things that can lead you to welfare as well as happiness as a normal man in his life. There are four things here: accomplishment in initiative, accomplishment in protection, accomplishment in good friendship, and accomplishment in balanced finances. There are only these four things. Okay, so for the purpose of today's sessions, I'm going to just touch on Dikajanu Sutta. Let's look at what does the Buddha meant when he talks about accomplishment in initiative. 2 points here. One is to understand your work, business, and professions well. So during Buddha's time, there are people who are involved in various trades and businesses, as well as people who are involved in their own respective professions. So today, same thing. For us, as far as we are concerned, all right, we are also involved in whatever things that we do. as well as work, whether we are business owner, whether we are professionals. Here, what it basically means is that you must understand your job. So in the real life example that I often tell my staff when I was working in a bank here is that there are 4 things you need to know to ensure that you do a good job. Number 1 here is you must have the knowledge of what you're supposed to do. All right. Of course, the knowledge here depends on what profession you're in. So let's say, for example, if you're in the insurance industry, then you need to have knowledge about the industry, knowledge about the technical part of insurance. All right. The second part here is that skills. All right. Having knowledge alone is not good enough. You need to have the skill of how to execute it. So, for example, if you are, say, working in a bank cashier, you do not only know the way to input into the system, but you must also know how to count cash correctly, for example, right? So that is a skill that you need to acquire. Similarly, if you are, say, for example, a businessman selling, say, an insurance, you also need to know how to execute the insurance application form, how to ensure that the customers pay on time and the customer's insurance are covered on time. All right, that's number 2, which is basically a skills. The third one is an attitude. Now, this is very, very important. Through my 40 over years of working in as a professionals, I noticed that many people can quickly acquire knowledge, can quickly acquire skills. But it comes to attitude, all right, that's always a challenge. The difference between somebody who are successful in a job and those who are mediocre or those who are not successful is the attitude they have in a job. It's very, very important. I like to give you an example of, well, this 𝐃𝐡𝐚𝐦𝐬 man, he is very successful. Why? Of course, number 1, his food is good. But number 2, when you see him fry his 𝐶𝐴, you see he do it with lots of passions and lots of what do you call it, commitment that you put into making sure that the noodles are stirred, timely, professionally, and when you add the sauce at the right time and things like that. So same thing. If you are knowledgeable in your work, skillful in your job, and at the same time you've got the right attitude, you can go very far. And of course, through attitude, when you do it continuously over a period of time, right, it becomes a habit. So here, when I talk about accomplishment initiative, when you talk about understanding your job, business, profession, in the current context of the world, I think one should be knowledgeable, skillful, have the right attitude, and create good habits. All right, that's the first part. The second part here is to complete the job well with good result. Of course, if you have got the right combination of the KSAH, I call it, naturally you will always get a job well done with good results. All right. So, for example, if you are involved in customer service and you've got the right attitude to serve the customer, you will in most cases you'll find that the customer will be a fully satisfied customer. We have done a job well with the right attitude. So that's basically what the Buddha mentioned when he talks about accomplishment initiative. That means to say, in short, you are good in what you're doing. All right, when you're good in what you're doing, you will definitely be successful. All right. So and I can see that in 40 over years, I would like to take myself as example because I started off as working in the bank as a clerk, and I retired as an ED of the bank. So I think in that sense I'm successful, right? All right. So the second part here is accomplishment in protections. Of course, when you do well in your professions, in your businesses, you will accumulate wealth. You will earn your legitimate wealth through your own efforts. All right. Here, specifically, the Buddha mentioned, earn your legitimate wealth. So it basically means to say that we earn through our own sweat and tears. All right. So it's very, very important. Later on, you'll notice that why the Buddha mentioned legitimate wealth. There are people who became wealthy through an honest living, through an honest business. But there are people who gain wealth through an illegal means. All right. So they're wealthy too, but the way they derive their wealth are two different things. So here, when the Buddha advised 𝐃𝐡𝐚𝐦𝐬𝐚, he advised 𝐃𝐡𝐚𝐦𝐬𝐚 to ensure that when he earns his wealth, it has to be done through the right effort. through the right effort. Of course, right livelihood as well. All right. That is the accomplishment in protection. All right. And of course, you protect your wealth against theft, destruction, and taken by unloved heirs. Of course, today, in those days, those people who are wealthy probably will keep their gold coins or gold nuggets or jewelries, expensive jewelries, in their own home. Those days, we don't have a bank, we don't have a safe deposit, we don't have insurance properly. But today, we have all that. So we can actually protect ourselves against theft. However, having said that, with the latest technology and people are getting more cunning and out to cheat you, even money in your banks are not safe anymore. So in that sense, you have to be mindful of the scams, that are out to steal the money away from you. So that is one area in which the life gets complicated nowadays. And therefore, this advice that the Buddha gave more than 2,600 years ago is still relevant. The only thing here is how we protect our wealth. That is something that we need to update ourselves. And of course, destruction by fire, by natural disaster. Today, we've got insurance that can protect us against the destruction by fire, especially our home or even our vehicles. We can protect it with insurance. And of course, the other one here is taken by unloved heirs. Here basically means to say that people that we do not appreciate is trying to take property, our wealth. So these are three things that the Buddha have taught us. And I think until today is still relevant. So even though it was given many years ago, but the advice given to the Buddha by the Buddha is still relevant. So this is second accomplishment. And of course, if you done a good job, you accumulate your wealth. At the end of the day, when you retire, you feel satisfied, feel that whatever you have earned, whatever assets you accumulated, through legitimate means, through your own sweat and tears, through your own intelligence and hard work and right attitude, you feel satisfied and fulfilled, right? So this is the second part of the initiative. Now, coming to earning legitimate wealth, I think here, when we talk about legitimate wealth, we're talking about being honest, trust, and respect, and guided by the 5 principles. Now, I'd like to share with you an experience that I had with my friends. We used to go hiking, and in the place that we go hiking, there is these 2 fruit sellers, 2 different shop fruit sellers. So this friend of mine went to buy fruits from this first seller. And when he went back to weigh the fruit, because he suspected that the fruit is lighter than what he was given, what he was told, and it's not cheap fruits, it's expensive fruit. So he was cheated for about 100 over grams out of a kilo, right? So he felt that he need to give it back to the sellers. And the next time he went hiking, he approached the seller and told the seller that the way that you give me is not correct. So instead of admitting it or trying to sort of rebate or apologize, he keep on defending his position to say that no, what he did was correct. So what happened here is that, of course, he earned my friend's money, but my friends wanted to buy fruits. This time he never go and buy fruits from that stall. He went to the next stall and buy it. So you see, when you do business without an honest way of doing it, you will lose a customer. And over a period of time, if more and more people were to buy and realize that they've been cheated, the person who lost is actually the person who is doing business. That's basically honesty. The second one here is on trust and respect. I think when you do business, very often there's always this element of trust. Trust, and of course, respect is always a mutual thing. So I've got another friend who is involved in business. So, of course, he deals with a product that is custom-made and given to customers. And then when the customers are not happy with the product, what he did here, he asked 2 things. 1, he will give discount, or 2, he will replace it. But if the customer need it because there's an urgency for him to deliver the finished product, my friend here will give a discount to the customer. So over a period of time, you realize that he built trust with his buyer. And buyers will, because the buyer knows that He's an honest man, he can be trusted, and therefore he gains a lot more repeated business. So this is an example of how we can actually earn legitimate business. And of course, it does not only mean that when you do business, you need to be honest and trustworthy, yeah, or respect. But when you're working for people, same thing. So basically, when you are trying to earn a living, trying to gain wealth, I think you must do it honestly, and you must ensure that there's a trust and respect between both parties. And of course, not forgetting that we should always be guided by the 5 precepts: non-killing, non-stealing, non-sexual misconduct, lying, as well as taking intoxicants. Now, towards this aspect, there are 5 traits that the Buddha in Vanija Sutta discouraged. These are the 5 types of traits that we should avoid. 1 here is selling of weapons, 2 humans, 3 meat, 4 poisons, and 5 intoxicants. All right. So these are 5 traits that we try to avoid. But often they're not. Sometimes because of legacy, because where the business are handed down, so that person had no choice. So I recall there was an incident in which one of the devotees actually went to our late chief, K.C. Dhammananda, because he was dealing with selling chicken meat. So he said that in this business has been carried on by his family for many generations. So he asked a chief, he says, what can I do about it? Of course, as far as late chief is concerned, we have to be practical. Number 1, we have to earn a living, an honest living. Number 2, unfortunately, he is involved in the meat business. So he actually gave these devotees 2 choices. Either you gradually stop and find an alternative business to do, or 2, it's okay, you only break the 1 of the 5 precepts. You try to ensure to make sure that you comply with the 4 other precepts and do lots and lots of merits. All right. So these are practical approach that can be done. But if you can avoid this 5 traits, that would be the best. Yeah. So these are the advice that is given by the Buddha in the related suttas. Now, the next one here is accomplishment in good friendship. Just now we talk about initiative. We talk about what do you call it? Protection of wealth. The next point, things that the Buddha gave advice to Dikajanu is having good friendship. Here, what it basically means to say here is that when we mix with people or friends, we have to ensure that the people or friends that we have, they are matured in their conducts. All right. Now, maturity in conducts are very general. So whether they are young householder, they're old householder, so long as they are mature in conduct, these are friends that we need to be around with, because friends very often they're not influence a lot of things in our life. So what are the 4 conducts of maturity in conducts? So these are the 4 constitute maturity in conducts, and the 4 qualities. 1 here is accomplishment in faith, 2nd, accomplishment in ethics, 3rd, in generosity, and 4th, in wisdom. Let's look at further how the Buddha defined these 4 conducts. Number 1 is accomplishment in faith. Here, when the Buddha talk about accomplishment in faith, he's referring to the faith in the realized one awakening, the 9 qualities of the Buddha. Now, every time when we do our puja, when we chanted Iti Piso Bhagava Arang Sama Sambuddho, there are 9 qualities of the Buddha. And of course, if we have saddha in the 9 qualities of the Buddha, we should automatically have saddha in his teaching, which is the Dhamma, and as well as the Sangha, who is a community of monks that will ensure that the continuity of the Buddha Sasana will remain. So that's basically accomplishment in faith. Now, what about accomplishment in ethics? Ethics basically means to say morality. Here we talk about observing the 5 precepts, which is basically the basic moral values. So if we want to aspire to develop our spiritual development, the first thing that we need to do here is sila before we go into samadhi. And of course, we don't even have sila how to practice samadhi. All right. Later on, we will go through what we mean by the 5 precepts. Then, of course, the next one is accomplished in generosity. All right, generosity, as we know, is very important. In fact, in one of the paramis, 10 paramis, generosity is always number one. So here, when the Buddha talks about accomplishment in generosity, he's talking about you are always generous, open arm, and at home you're not stingy. When you talk about not stingy, you're not stingy not only in material things, but you're not stingy in helping others. You're not stingy in appreciation. You're not stingy in doing things that needs to be done. And of course, if you need to let go, let go. And you should always learn to give and share. And of course, you should also be committed to charity. These are basically the type of friends that the Buddha encouraged us to have. And of course, the fourth one, wisdom. So here again, wise have the knowledge and understanding and realization of the three characteristics of life, which is dukkha, anicca, anatta, which is suffering, impermanency, and non-self. And of course, the friends that you have should also have deep appreciation in mental faculties, right? So this is basically what the Buddha meant when he talks about accomplishment in good friendship. Now, I already mentioned here that when you talk about accomplishment in faith, here we are talking about the 9 qualities of the Buddha, and every time when I do my morning offerings to the Buddha and puja, when you chant this part, the Iti Puso Bhagava, when you reflect on 9 qualities of the Buddha, what you have here is calm and peace of mind. I think that is a mental state that we should accomplish. So every time when we do our puja, we should always wish that our heart be peaceful and free, and our mind should be happy. All right, that's how we should have that. Okay. Now the next one here is basically accomplishment in ethics. This is basically observing the 5 precepts. Now the 5 precepts basically abstain from killing, stealing, or take those not given, abstain from sexual misconduct, false speech, as well as taking intoxicants. These are the most basic moral values. We all know about it now, and we are all still trying to practice it. Now, when you talk about abstain from killing, of course, there are different levels of ethics that we want to set ourselves. For example, of course, it is rare that we want to even think about killing human being. But there's always a challenge of killing ants and mosquitoes, which is much smaller animals, creatures. So of course, if you want to maintain a high moral values, then I think we should also try to avoid killing all these insects. One way I normally do here is that if we keep our home clean, all right, we keep our home clean, then you notice that generally cockroaches and ants will not come in. But we are not hygiene enough, then you find that these creatures, because it's natural for them to look for food, and they find remnants of food all over your place, naturally it will come to you. But if you keep your house clean, then you find that you can avoid those insects, and by so doing, it gives you an opportunity not to kill. All right, and of course, abstain from stealing or take those not given. This is something that we should avoid. Stealing does not only mean things that does not belong to us, it's just not things. It's also time. So if you were to steal time in the office, that's also stealing. All right. And sexual misconduct, we all know, when you have a sexual relationship with somebody whom you do not have a deep and long-term commitment, I think that's not good. That's actually bad. Abstaining from false speech, as we know, is also no good. But false speech are divided into 4 different other categories. We shall not go into the details now. Basically, it suffices to know that if we want to mix friends, we have to ensure that the friends that we mix have at least this moral value. The 5th one is very important. You see a lot of us get intoxicated or influenced by friends who ask us to partake into all these intoxicants. So if we are good friends who do not or abstain from taking this intoxicant, it will help us as well. Right? Okay. Now, of course, the other one is that the purpose of us observing these 5 precepts here is we want happiness. But when we want to achieve happiness, we should do it without oppressing others. I think Dhammapada 131 clearly mentioned that, if you want happiness, it should be achieved without oppressing others. So if you want to find true happiness in the next existence, you can achieve true happiness without oppressing others. In fact, you can, by doing kindness, by doing the opposite of the 5 precepts, you can achieve true happiness. And we all know that when you speak harshly to another, very often you get retaliations, and it's not good for the mind as well, right? Now, then the next item here is why 5 precepts? Why do we want to build good habits? All right, here is very clearly mentioned that when you abstain from killing, what you are doing here, you're promoting loving kindness. And of course, when you abstain yourself from stealing, you are indirectly practicing generosity. When you see something that does not belong to you, you do not take it. You do not take it doesn't mean you're stealing, but in a way you are preventing yourself from taking things that are not yours, and hopefully you can also practice generosity. And of course, by abstaining sexual misconduct, what you're practicing here is renunciations. All right, and wrong speech. When you abstain from wrong speech, you are encouraged to tell the truth and be honest. And of course, when you abstain yourself from taking intoxicants, which will actually cause heedlessness, and you are not in control of your mind, and therefore you're not mindful. So when you prevent yourself from taking intoxicants, then you become more mindful and samadhi. These are friends that we want to have. All right, these are friends that we want to have. And of course, if you have all these so-called 5 qualities of loving kindness, generosity, renunciation, truth and honesty, mindfulness, and samadhi, we have friends who have this kind of caliber or kalyana mitras, then of course you feel safe. When you feel safe, you feel good, right? Now, the next item here is accomplishment in good friendship is generosity. So when we have friends who are generous, what does it mean? It basically means to say he's not stingy, he's very generous, he's open-ended, he loves to let go, to give and share, and is committed to charity. There are many ways in which we can be generous. One is through compassion. We can show our generosity through compassion by helping those who are in pain. All right. And of course, if we can afford it, then charity is also another way in which we can express our generosity, right? And of course, sometimes if we are expert in particular field, for example, if you're doctors, you want to do voluntary, you can give your time and expertise to help those people who need your services and efforts and expertise. And of course, you may not have all this, but you are strong, physically strong, you are helpful, and in time of disaster, for example, in this case, a flood situation, you can actually volunteer to help those people who need your help. All right. So this is also another form of generosity. So generosity is not always relating to money. And of course, if you recall during MCO, there are many people who put in a white flag. And there are also people who actually came out to provide free food to those people who need it. So these are also another form of generosity in which we can practice. All right. All these are not difficult to do. All right. And the next thing here is that if there is any material that you think you don't need anymore, especially at certain point in our life, we accumulate too many of toys and too many of belonging which we think we no longer need. What we can do here, we can always donate it to charity, or there are clothing that is still in good condition, but you're no longer wearing it because of changes in size. You can always donate it. There are many organizations that collect such things. For example, 𝐃𝐡𝐚𝐦𝐦𝐚 𝐒𝐡𝐚𝐫𝐢𝐧𝑠 collects a lot of so-called unwanted things for them to recycle and generate sales, so that they can use the money that they generate to help others. So these are 4 types of friends, good friendships. That is worth mixing with. All right, and of course, if if you yourself are generous, when you give more than you take, then of course what you have here is at the end of the day is joy and happiness. But if you can't do it, then if you've got friends who are exhibiting this quality and you join them, you share the same joy and happiness as them. So this is basically accomplishment in good friendship. All right. Now, what about accomplishment in wisdom? So this is the fourth item. So if you happen to meet Kalyana Mitras who are deep in thoughts, who understands more than just a normal day-to-day life, but understand the in-depth of Buddhism. So as we all know that our body, well, I wouldn't say there's no self here, but an individual have got these so-called 5 components, one body and the rest all minds. Okay, so what it basically means here is that these 5 aggregate of existence are always in a constant change. For example, our body are aging from the day we are born until the day we pass on. All right, so our bodies are subject to old age, subject to sickness, and subject to death. Then we have got our mind. Our mind are divided into 4 components, which are mainly feelings. Feelings are basically, you can feel good, you can feel sad, and you can feel neutral. And again, here feelings are always changing. One moment you can be happy, next moment you can be sad. All right. And of course, the makeup of a human mind here is that when you see something, either through your eyes, or you hear something through your ears, or you taste something through your mouth, or you smell something to your nose, or you feel something on your skin. All right, that's the kind of feeling that comes in. All right, and that feeling will form a perception. Perception are basically what do you call it? Something that you feel because of your past experiences. You experience, for example, you have a kid who actually touched an iron and he feels it hot. So the next time when he sees an iron, he knows that, oh, that item cannot be touched because it is hot. So that's the kind of perception we have. So similarly, our experience with things is the same thing. We know what a car look like. We know what a banana tree look like. We know what a fire look like. That is the perception that will come to us. Now, after we've gone through those process, the next is mental formations. So the mental formation is basically the one that is going to so-called create karma, whether we have great hatred delusion or the opposite of it. All right. And of course, a human being exists because of consciousness. If you do not have consciousness, mean to say you are basically a corpse. You've got body, but you don't have any other things. You don't have any consciousness. So basically, all these 5 aggregate existence is always under constant change. You will never be in one position, in one position all the time. So if you look at the 5 aggregate existence, the issue that we always ask ourselves here is that if we say it is I and me, where is that I and me? Is it in the body? Is it in the feeling? Is it in the perception? Is it in the mental formation, or is it in consciousness? All right. So that's my way of explaining that what do you call it? The concept of anatta. So there's no non-self. Of course, not every friend that we have may have this knowledge. All right, but of course, if they have, then they will actually help us to make us understand human existence better. All right. So, question here: is it to find such friend? I think it's difficult. So, in fact, the 4 qualities that we talk about in good friendships are not easy. Not easy for us to find those qualities of friend. But what we can do here is we can play a reverse role. If we have some of this knowledge, for example, if we have knowledge of generosity, we have knowledge of of ethics, and we have knowledge of faith. Okay, perhaps what we can do here is we can be that good friends. All right, we can be that good friends. So it does not mean that if we happen to find a friend who is good, but he may lack certain qualities, if we have got that knowledge, we can also be that good friends. All right. So this is what the Gajanu Sutta taught us, accomplishment in good friends. And of course, the 4th things that the Buddha taught 𝐃𝐡𝐚𝐦𝐻 is basically you can accomplish yourself in balance in finances. You see, during the Buddha's time, he is also a financial accountant. He's basically also somebody who knows a lot about finance. If you realize that even in the Sigalovada Sutta, the Buddha taught about how to invest, how to invest in money. Here, what the Buddha have taught 𝐃𝐡𝐚𝐦𝐻 here is, he says, you must balance your income and your expenditure. So basically what they're trying to say here is that if you have, say, $100 income, your expenses cannot be more than $100. In fact, your expenses should be less than $100. But then at the same time, he also said that you cannot be too extravagant nor too frugal. So meaning to say that if you've got $100, you cannot be spending $200. Then you're always on a negative every month. At the same time, you earn $100, you cannot only be spending $1. That's been too frugal. So what he's trying to say here is, don't live like a fig eater or starve or not starving to death. So you don't be over lavish, neither should you be starving yourself even though you earn enough. So this is the part where the Buddha taught us to balance our income and expenditure. I think this is a very wise thing. In fact, in Sigalovada Sutta, the Buddha also taught Sigalovada how to invest. So he say you should divide your income into into 4 parts. The first part is your daily expenses, second part contingencies, and then the third and the fourth part is for investment. So that's what the Buddha have taught us. And in this particular sutta, 𝐃𝐡𝐚𝐻 Sutta, the Buddha also taught about how to live your life through balance in finances. All right. And of course, when you have more, you have got saving, then you worry less. Now, at the same time, the Buddha also talk about, well, you got good friends that, what do you call it, that ensure that you can be rest assured that you live a good life. But he also warned 𝐃𝐡𝐚𝐻. He says that there are 4 sources of destruction, meaning to say that you work hard, you amass your wealth, you protect your wealth, you got good friends and things like that. But at the same time, he also warned us to say that if you involve in adultery, debauchery means adultery, you always get yourself drunk, you gamble, and you have friends, companionships with evildoers, then these are the 4 things that will result in the destruction of your wealth. Okay, of course, he gave an example of a great tank with 4 inlet and 4 outlet, and if a man should close the inlet and open the outlet, and there should be no adequate rainfall, decrease of water is to be expected in that tank and not an increase. Even so, there are 4 sources for the destruction of mass wealth: debauchery, drunkenness, gambling, and friendship, companionship, and intimacy with evildoers. So what the Buddha is trying to say here, that very often than not, debauchery, drunkenness, gambling, and mixing friends, these are all relating to mixing the wrong people. So when you mix the wrong friends, when you don't have the wrong friends, when you don't have the right Kalyana Mitras, and Kalyana Mitras that are not teaching you the right thing, then you land yourself into trouble. So you have to, again here, choose your friend wisely. All right. So having true friends is very, very important. Finally, in related suttas, the Buddha has time and again ensure that, remind us that we need to make sure that we have the right friendship, right association, right Kalyana Mitras. In fact, in the first verse of Mahamangala Sutta, the Buddha specifically mentioned here not to associate with fools, to associate with the wise and honor those who are worthy of honor. This is the greatest blessings. So if you are able to associate yourself with the wise, with good Kalyana Mitras, this is the greatest blessings. All right. And last but not least, in Dhammapada 76, the Buddha also mentioned, associate not with evil friends, associate not with mean men, associate with good friends, associate with noble men. So Dhammapada 76 again mentioned about friends. So you notice that in this particular sutta and all the other related sutta, the Buddha have time and again to say that friend has got a strong influence in our life. So, and therefore, if we want happiness, ensure that you are surrounded by true friends. Okay, so that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much. Over to you, Terence.
Thank you, Brother Seng Huat, for today's sharing. Now let's dedicate some merits to all beings, whether they are seen and unseen. Akasata Chabummata Devanaga Mahidika Punyang Tam Anumoditwa Chiram Rakantu Loka Sasanang Ettawata Amhehi Sampadang Punya Sampadang Sabbe Deva Sabbe Bhuta Sabbe Satta Numodantu Sabba Sampatti Siddhya Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you everyone for watching. For other videos, please go to the links below. Bye bye for now. See you all again next week.